Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Rena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started.
Okay, I got a fun, cringeworthy one for us again today.
I'm so ready.
Something we haven't done in a while that honestly I thought we'd do a lot more of. It's been a while since we've done this. Our favorite topic as dentists are negative reviews, that 1-star review. Mm-hmm. Is this still a problem where people are struggling to deal with this? Like, I know they still make my stomach hurt.
Yes.
Okay.
It's absolutely still happening.
Okay, and I'm not the only one getting
No, they come through. It's a combination of both. Like the negative reviews will come through and it's so hard to get the positive ones. So it's that combination of fighting to get the positive ones and then the scathing ones that come through. And thankfully they're relatively infrequent, but they still happen.
Yeah. And so back to the same old conundrum of HIPAA seems like it's even more intense now, and so we really can't defend ourselves. Like, that's always been the case, and then I feel like we hear more about like you really can't, and the advice almost seems to be like just don't reply to anything. We're still not in that boat yet. I think there was one recently that I just ignored.
You ignored it
because and I think that's the only one I've ever ignored, but she was so ridiculous that I could not come up with anything to go, lady, you are like out of your mind. Like, everything that you're saying scientifically doesn't make any sense. Basically, I did crowns on her kid and I put crowns that were too big. And like 3 years later, I'm like, if the crowns are too big, they'd be falling off.
Yeah.
And 3 years later, she has permanent molars coming in ectopically, which is very common. And let me watch what I say here. She got to believe that the crowns were too big. And then, so, railed us back then. Then 6 years later, she comes up and like reposts a review from 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Saying how, I think I talked about this recently, now that I'm saying it again, on one of these podcasts, but she came back and was like, oh, my teenager has jaw pain and TMD because of those crowns they put on when she was 3 years old. I'm like, oh my God, like scientifically that didn't make any sense. How do you argue with that?
Yeah.
And with HIPAA, how do you say, like, should I have just responded and said, we're happy to answer any questions because your comments don't make any sense? Like, how do I kindly like put like, you are delusional, and if you're ready for a lesson in the basics of
then
science
call us.
And crowns, then call. Like, I just couldn't figure out a way, so I didn't touch it. Which I'm sure, like, she's trying to get a reaction out of us, and once again, like, so I'm like, where did this come from? Like, when I originally placed the crowns, do you feel like I didn't spend enough time explaining what we were doing to you, or have you never gotten over the fact that you rotted your kid's teeth and she needed all those crowns? Like, I can't. But you really have a vendetta against me personally. I did something to trigger you.
Yeah.
And now I'm ignoring you, which is going to trigger you even more. Because you see I reply to everybody else but you.
And let me just throw this in because I know you won't say it. This is where, as dental professionals, we need to be kind to one another. Because I can't tell you how many times the negative reviews come after they go to somebody else, that somebody else says all kinds of scathing things about the treatment plan, and I'm not sure why they would treatment plan that when XYZ, or look at the quality of this. I'm not saying there's not bad quality dentistry out there. There certainly is. But from one dental professional to another, don't diminish the profession of dentistry. Don't tell a mom, like, I don't know why they would have treatment planned that. You good and well know that there is scientific reasons for recommending a crown over a filling. And yes, general dentists, if you don't do stainless steel crowns, it's okay to say, I personally don't do stainless steel crowns that wasn't a strong part of my training. I am more comfortable with fillings. I know most pediatric dentists are trained in the craft of stainless steel crowns, and there's scientific reasons that they recommend full coverage as opposed to fillings. However, what I do here are fillings. And so therefore, my treatment plan is going to look different from the pediatric dentist. That is okay to say, but to go, oh, stainless steel crowns are so much more aggressive than we would do here. No, it's not about aggressive or non-aggressive. It's about one school of thought. It's about a pediatric school of thought versus a general school of thought. So I won't go any further on the soapbox other than to say, stop discounting the profession of dentistry by making the other person look like a shady doctor. To me, you're shooting yourself in the foot, because you think this person's not going to come back and bite your ass in the end. They will. Yeah. So quit doing. I can't tell you how many times I get so inflamed by that type of language happening at other offices. Quit biting your people. And
quit biting your profession.
Yes.
And you may not like the person, and you may see stuff coming out of their office that's either different from what you treatment planned or the work was different. But at the end of the day, if you think you are the be all end all and you'd make no mistakes and your plans are perfect and they're not saying that about you somewhere else, like, you're fooling yourself.
Yes.
And it diminishes the profession is where it boils down to. Or like you're saying, the number that we see at a state board complaint level, it's another dentist. I want to say, my guess would be minimum 20% of what's down there is another dentist threw another one under the bus.
Yeah.
So, and it, a lot of times it is literally throwing somebody under the bus, and other times it's a benign comment. Like, maybe this dentist was like, oh, these crowns must be too big and this tooth is coming in this way. And it's like, okay, don't make your lack of knowledge because you don't see a lot of kids and you don't know that ectopic eruption is extremely common, that you benignly said, oh, the crown must be too big. Like, maybe you meant no malintent, but you've planted that seed in the patient's head now. Mm-hmm. And I see a ton of that all the time.
Yeah.
And so, watching how you talk about, or even your staff, like half the time your staff will say stupid things without realizing that that's what they're doing. Yeah. They're just commenting out loud, but they've inadvertently planted a seed in somebody's head. So it is a lot of pressure to make sure we say the right things or our facial expressions are the right way or whatever it is. But
yes.
Anywho, how did we get off on that?
Sorry,
talking
that was
about
totally
reviews.
Me. Yeah.
Or
because this lady that you're saying you couldn't comment on because it was just all, essentially hogwash. This all came from her going to another dentist that ultimately said something that stroked the fire, and then she felt like you had done a lot
and she stuck to that.
Yeah.
And I do think a lot of that is probably mom guilt, that her kid needed all those crowns to begin with.
Yeah.
So, anyway, and I guess to me, yeah, you're right. I wish somebody had defended me along the way going, ma'am, that doesn't make any sense at all that she'd have TMJ issues with all these crowns. It doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
Like, could you have debunked it? And I bet you couldn't have debunked it. Maybe you were too busy. Maybe you don't know enough yourself. Maybe you don't know. Like, who knows? But I wish somebody would have stopped and gone, hey. Because I feel like I do that all the time. Somebody will come in and be like, oh, this dentist, this. And I'm like, can we stop for a minute? Because I totally see how they get. And I may not know the dentist. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I think, yeah, I don't know why that dentist did that. But I'm trying to help the profession.
Yes.
By trying to come up with, what did I not know? Because I only see the after. I didn't see the before.
Correct.
And it may have been because the mom didn't want, her kid to have nitrous. But the kid is a Frankel 2 and a shit show just to get a cleaning done. Like, we don't know all the facts. And so, anyway, agreed. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Okay. So, anyway, I'm still getting negative views aplenty. And so here we are. I thought I'd share a couple today because I think actually it had been a little while, I think. And now we got 2 back-to-back really mean ones. And so kind of shook me a little bit and kind of went, okay, we were back in that process of how do we respond to this to where I'm not triggering the patient more. Y'all remember, I'm Miss Passive Aggressive, so I really need help with these. I have not lost that. My thought is always like, okay, I got to talk myself off the ledge, give it a day or two to where I can respond so that I'm not,
getting your little snarky jabs
in. Oh, and getting the flames far higher than they initially were. But then going back and forth over what our responses should be. And I think one of them I had, so we'll get to that one. It was myself, an associate, and my husband were the main ones, but then we waited on you for your final approval. And then the other one, like, you took a stab at first, and then we ended up not going with that, but I think you were fine with where we ended up.
Yes, definitely.
So I might have you kind of talk through some of your thoughts and our thoughts, because I think it's helpful to kind of go, what is the end goal here? And honestly, maybe y'all don't agree with the way we finally responded, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think just the mindset of all the mindsets that come up might be helpful, was my point.
The multifaceted approach to those responses. We don't take those responses lightly. They're very well thought out. They're not off the cuff or a knee-jerk reaction. And I think that's the biggest takeaway in this is, first of all, I always recommend responding. And I know there's plenty of people out there that would say don't, or just be like, oh, thank you for your response. We wish you the best of luck. And you and I, thankfully, are in the same vein on that. So respond is going to be my recommendation. And there's plenty of arguments the other way, but mine is respond. And then the second one is be very thorough and thoughtful in your response. Collaborate with people. Think about what you're hoping to gain from this response. And I think you'll see that as we go through these.
Yeah, so this one was a little bit easier. This first one I'm going to go through, and then the second one I think was good. And I'll get to what I liked about the banter on that one. But this was a 1-star. This was 3 weeks ago, I think, 3 weeks ago. And the response or the post was, my insurance was in their network for the year 2022 and 2023. In 2024, when it went out of network, the staff has not clearly informed on the change. They managed by saying I have to pay up front and then my insurance company will send me a check later. After the visit, when my claim is processed through my insurance, I got to know that this office is out of my insurance network. I had to pay out of pocket. It would have been nice if the staff informed me up front that my insurance is out of network. And this is exactly what we were worried about with the Delta drop.
So say it's not surprising that a couple of reviews, it's almost like you make insurance changes and you're almost guaranteed to get a couple of negative reviews out of that. And a lot of times that scares people enough that they won't make the change to drop. But we just have to anticipate it. No matter how well we plan how we're going to tell patients and what we're going to do, there's going to be somebody that's upset about it. Lots of people that are upset, but one or two that are upset enough to write a review. So here we go. So, here's your one.
And I've not given anybody a Delta update thus far, right? Because it's been almost 6 months. And so still to be determined. Do I wish I hadn't dropped? Not yet. We're not there yet. I keep saying we're never going to be back in network. But I have a colleague that told me they're getting back in. Like they dropped Delta, I think a couple of months before us. I don't think they had as thorough a plan as we did.
Yeah.
Because based off the few things she told me via text, I don't think she anticipated the assignment of benefits issue.
Right.
Which is the whole issue. So the fact that you didn't prepare properly for that tells me that you didn't realize that Delta was going to be a different ballgame than dropping other insurances.
Right.
Anyway, they're getting back in. And I told you, I was like, oh my God, is that going to be us in a few months? And you're like, no. Once you're out, nobody goes back in. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's been the trend, but we're going to be a new trend. I don't know. But for now, it's been a very good thing. Yes. But we know we're not out of the woods yet.
We're not out of the woods, but it's performing better than I expected so far. And again, we'll know more in the next 6 months. But the first 6 months, from a retention standpoint, I've been incredibly pleased. It's outperformed what I thought we would do.
And that's what we mean by when we say we're not out of the woods. Like, we don't know. Like, because we're just ending that 6 months. So now the patients that agreed to pay up front, or, we waived their out of pocket because we didn't know, or whatever it was that we did, say in March, are they going to come back in September? We don't know yet. We're not out of the woods about the true retention piece. Has the staff belly ached enough about the verbiage and about how they feel like they're lying to patients by not saying we're out of network? So then when I kind of said, okay, well, is that what y'all want to do? Like, that's not Bethany's recommendation, but we can go against what Bethany's saying if it's making your lives miserable. So we're just going to start telling them we're out of network. Well, no, we don't want to do that either, because then they're not going to come in because they don't understand out of network, and that we can still see them, and their insurance may very well pay really well and they not have an out-of-pocket. Okay, so what do y'all want to do? And in the end, we stuck to the Bethany. Like, we troubleshooted it every which way. And it was like, no, let's keep doing what we're doing. And like you said, we've had plenty of patients that have given them an earful in the office, but this was our first negative review about it, which, like you just said, is a win. Like 6 months later is a win.
It's a huge win in my mind.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I actually love about this review is that it shows how upfront we were being. So no, we weren't contacting parents and saying, hey, by the way, for your visit next week, we're out of network. We were calling and letting them know what does out of network actually mean for them. Like, that's what they care about. What does the consequence of being out of network mean? So we were focusing on the consequence. Hey, by the way, our relationship with your insurance company has changed slightly. Next week when you come in, you'll actually pay in full and then you'll receive a reimbursement check. So just want to make sure you knew about that. So they were getting informed ahead of time, which the reviewer says that. But because we didn't say specifically out of network, but he still came in knowing he was going to have to pay in full and then get reimbursed. So they told him what the change was for him, but we didn't say out of network. So I actually was like, I appreciate this review because it shows what our process was, which we were overtly clear on what that meant for him, but we just didn't use those keywords, and that's what he didn't like.
Yeah. Which, honestly, I see that because from patients, they do see it as black or white and don't catch all the nuances in between. And so, the question becomes, should we go back and say out of network? But then you risk all these patients now getting upset with you because they're like, I could have come to your practice. I didn't understand. So anyway, so how do you respond to that? And so I was just like, Bethany, how do we respond to this? Like, go ahead. You're the one who made us do this. Delta not say out of network. Go ahead. You tell us the answer there. So this was your initial stab, which you sent us like right away. And so I think you were prepared and ready.
Yes, I was.
So your initial stab, can I read this?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Thank you for your feedback. Our goal is always to be transparent with parents regarding what we know about their specific policy and how the insurance company chooses to coordinate with us. As most providers can attest, network status changes constantly. A handful of insurance companies change the way they pay based on network status. Therefore, in an effort to be exceedingly helpful to parents, we work diligently to let them know ahead of time when there is an anticipated copay. Most parents prefer straightforward information about their anticipated bill. So when we spend effort and energy working to provide detailed information and explanations to ensure that parents know if they will need to pay at appointments. I might have missed a word in there. So we spend effort and energy to inform parents. Most parents are appreciative of the lengths we take to research their plan and provide the best information we have. We are sorry that the information regarding anticipated payment was not helpful to you.
Mm-hmm. So basically I doubled down on that. So he said they called, I keep saying he, I don't even know what gender.
I think it was a he.
So he said they called me and let me know that I'll need to pay ahead of time and insurance will reimburse me. And so I doubled down on that and said, absolutely, that is what we're trying to do, is be overtly clear, because that is what we're trying to do. What we're trying to avoid is the confusing language. I call it the language of the enemy. In network and out of network was created by insurance companies to be very divisive. They wanted people to feel pressured to go to an in-network provider and to avoid at all costs an out-of-network provider. That is now confusing to patients out there because they believe that they can't go to an out-of-network provider. And so in order to keep our parents from being confused, we went with the more overt communication, which is, by the way, when you come in, you will now need to pay us and insurance will reimburse you. Because the question becomes, okay, well, what does out-of-network mean for me? Well, what out-of-network means is that you're going to pay when you come in and insurance. So skip the whole confusing part and get straight to the point, which is what I was trying to say with that response, is we actually are very proud of how clear we are. We are not hiding from this. We're actually more explicit than most would do. And we spend a lot of time and effort researching and then contacting you ahead of time. And I'm sorry that effort was essentially not appreciated on your end. So that was the point of my response.
And I liked that. I think part of me went, I know my peeps. And I know that's not going to satisfy him because he's like, okay, blue, 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 blue. In my words of Michael Scott, jibbity, blah, blah, jibbity, blue, blue, right? Like, bloody, blah, bloody, blee, I think is what he said in the episode the other day that I was rewatching. You know, they're going to be like, well, you didn't tell me you were out of network and I was going to have to owe something. And so back to your point of we didn't use that verbiage, which is with my peeps, you didn't say that means you're being shady. I don't care what diligent and your network status. I don't know what all of that means. The point is you're out of network and you didn't say that. So to me, I was like, is he going to be like, okay, you're again being extremely confusing, even though everything you're saying is correct. But for somebody who has zero understanding and zero wanting to understand, already suspicious, just going, well, you should have told me that I wasn't going to get paid.
Yeah.
Like I have been in the past.
Yeah.
So you're just putting your dental spoof on me and I don't know what you're doing, but you should have. Which, right or wrong, it is what it is. So my response back was like, so that was your suggested. And I think in a different demographic, that was perfect.
Yeah.
In my demographic, I was like, I think they're going to think we're being like, potato, and not getting down to it's neither a potato nor a potato, it's an onion, right? Like, I think that's where they were going to get us. So my thought was, thank you for taking your time to share your thoughts. We are equally frustrated with our interactions with insurance companies and the grossly inadequate and often inaccurate information they share with us. We do our best to let families know of copays ahead of time when we have that information. We are especially disappointed when the outstanding care we deliver to our families is overshadowed by the complexities of insurance coverage. Thank you for letting us share our thoughts. To which my husband offered, grossly inadequate seems a little harsh to me. Not that I'm defending insurance companies, but it does make you sound bitter. So then his reply was...
Which is accurate.
Which is accurate. Yes. So even he knows my...
snarkiness.
Yes, my snarkiness, my... what is the word? The overly aggressive, the passive aggressive.
Passive aggressive,
yes.
Yeah.
So his response was, we are equally frustrated with our interactions with insurance companies. We do our best to let families know of copays ahead of time based on the often inadequate information they provide. And then he said the rest is good. Then you liked that. And we ended up finally posting, thank you for taking your time to share your thoughts. We are equally frustrated with our interactions with insurance companies. We do our best to let families know of copays ahead of time based on the information, often inadequate and or inaccurate, they provide us with. We're especially disappointed when the outstanding care we deliver to our families is overshadowed by the complexities of insurance coverage. Thank you for letting us share our thoughts. And I think we all were fine with that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Which again, I think still gets, so when we hear that reaction or that response, anytime I'm thinking of a response, I'm thinking of what that particular parent needs to hear or might be helpful for them to give them some perspective. But I'm also thinking about the gajillion other people that are going to look at that review and our response. And what do we need them as potential patients to see in that response? And so what I liked about what y'all landed on was we are equally frustrated. So it aligns us. That's one of the things I say all the time. Like, we've got to quit trying to be the mediator between patient and insurance company, because we will always get stuck in the middle and we will always look like the bad guy. Instead, we've got to pull ourselves around and align ourselves with the patient, which is more accurate of a stance. And so this starts by saying we are equally frustrated with the communication that we have with insurance company, which immediately aligns us with the patient or the parent in this particular case. And then goes on to say, we do our best. We are really trying our best to provide accurate information, but insurance is providing us with inaccurate information. So it puts the blame where blame needs to go. Because like I say, with all of my providers that have dropped Delta, whose fault is it that they often pay the patient instead of the provider? Who did that? Delta did that. That's Delta's choice. They could choose differently, and they choose not to. They choose to make that a point of contention to persuade dentists to stay in their network. Well, that's Delta's fault. So yes, we are aligning ourselves with the patient. We're saying it is frustrating that we have to deal with this. It's frustrating that you have to deal with this. It's frustrating that we get bad information from insurance companies. They do not care about providing accurate information, and that's frustrating. And I think that response did that really well.
Well, and the other thing that I think where I paused with your response because of the demographic, again, I would have in another demographic, but I think I went to going, you know what, this is not new, people complaining about insurance. Like it's a variation, it's a very Delta specific issue, but through the years of the practice, we've had negative reviews about insurance. Mm-hmm. And my stance has always been, if you are going to be insurance, my insurance won't pay for this. My insurance, like, I'm not here to fight your insurance. And in the past, we've always kind of been like, we're not an insurance focused practice. We're a healthcare focused practice. And if insurance is going to help us with that or not, great, not great, but that's not our focus. Right. So if you're expecting us to spend a lot of time and trying to figure out your insurance, that's not us. Like, maybe that's where it's time to go on to a corporate office where they're going to do more of that, but that's not. And that was my message, whether the patient, whoever posted the review, probably didn't like that. But I'm thinking, if there's a like-minded person and now they're reading my responses, I don't know about your insurance, I don't care, I'm not going to look into it. Yeah. And that patient's like, what? Huh? This is not a place we want to go. Yeah, this is not a place you want to come. Yeah. But if you care about the quality and you're going to go, insurance isn't going to pay for all of this. So for me, the response almost made it seem like we are working diligently. So I totally see where you were coming with that. But I was like, but historically, we've always kind of gone, well, we'll do what we can, but your insurance may not pay anything, and do you still want to come here or not? So I kind of wanted to stick to our roots of how we've handled that. Yeah. And so here that's but I didn't want to not address that we are killing ourselves trying to verify all this. Like,
there's a ton of work going into that.
And side note, like you and I were just talking about, one of the things I mentioned at the last episode about Practice Growth Institute and the conference I went to, and they had vendors, and I want to say they had, 20, 25, 15 vendors, whatever it was. At least 4 were companies that were outsourcing front desk tasks remotely, which we've always had remote workers, but this was more about like insurance verification being done remotely. And so anyway, I'm like, but now I'm having to spend thousands of dollars a year to get your insurance verified remotely. Yeah. Or having somebody in the office do it. Like, it is a stupid expense for us. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be nice if you just paid our fee for service and then you deal with it, right? And that's where we wish we could be as a society, as a healthcare. Yeah. And we've come so far from that. Whatever. It is what it is. But my point being, like, I don't think these patients understand how much we are trying to help. No. And so that's where a lot of your verbiage was.
And money that goes into.
Right. That. So I didn't want to. It was like, for me, I was stuck going, they need to know that, because there is so much time, effort, energy, money. But at the same time, if you're expecting me to get your insurance right all the time, like, I'm going to do it to a point. And then after that, if all you care about is what your insurance is going to cover and not cover, then get the hell out of here. Yeah. Like, you've been coming 22, 23, 24. That tells me you've been happy with our services. Yeah. And so now you're going to get stuck on insurance didn't pay. Get out. Go. I don't have time for this right now. So anyway. That was the whole mindset on that one. Yeah. Any further thoughts before I move on to the next one? No. So that was an insurance one, and then we got hit with the quality of care one. You ready for that one?
Yeah, I'm ready for, this one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is one that one of my front desk team messaged me about. She wanted to talk to me about it, and I guess I couldn't talk to her right away, and so she just ended up emailing both of us. Completely dishonest dental center, even if the center itself is designed to have a wow factor with all the toys and giveaways. They must be buying reviews based on the ratings I see here. Took my kids for a dental cleaning, and a treatment plan filled with extractions, fillings, and laughing gas was prescribed. For both of my kids, the approximate out-of-pocket cost requested was $1,500. And mind you, my insurance covers 80%, so they would be collecting $7,500 total. Took my kid to another dentist for a second opinion. One kid just needed to have sealant refreshed, and the other kid just needed a few fillings. The total out-of-pocket cost was $160. Not only that, I took my children for a second opinion only 5 days after seeing this dentist. The hygienist remarked how bad the teeth cleaning was performed by this dental center and proceeded to redo the entire teeth cleaning. Avoid these crooks if you care about your children's teeth and your money. Mm-hmm. Ouch. Mm-hmm. Ouch. And you know what my awful response was? Thank goodness it wasn't me, because I was at the Practice Growth Summit. She's not talking about me. I'm not the crook. Associate, you're the crook. I didn't clean those teeth. Associate and hygienist, y'all don't know how to clean teeth. Okay. So.
Yeah. Oh, this one's so painful. Every word of this one is painful. Number one, because we know it's not true. I think that is what is so hard about these, because it does initiate that immediately defense response, because it is not true. We are not crooks. There's a major misunderstanding with insurance. What insurance company pays 80% of everything? So she's obviously confused about some of that. Then you've got that component of what I got on my soapbox about earlier. Some hygienists commenting about how the teeth weren't cleaned properly. One kid just needs, sealants. The other, and you're like, oh my gosh, what are they missing at that dental office? Which again, there's plenty of shady people out there. I talked to an associate that was leaving a practice because the doctor's philosophy was, why touch the tooth once when we can touch it twice?
Oh my God.
Do the sealant. The sealant will fail, and then there will be a need for a filling or a crown. And she couldn't be in that environment for obvious reasons. So then I'm immediately going, what crook did they go to that's now probably charging for another charging for another cleaning? They're doing sealants on somebody that obviously has cavities. Anyway, that's where my mind goes. But every word of this is painful because it's not true. And this one's so much more complex because HIPAA is all over this. We can't defend ourselves without breaking this patient's privacy. So we have to be really careful in our response here.
And then, even the math alone, I was like, how do you get from 1,500 to 7,500? What is going on here? So me just reading this, I'm like, okay, clearly something in right. And was it us or was it you? Or is it a combination, right? So, I think I reached out to associate then, and I was like, hey man, just call me when you can, because I just want some background information on this. So his stance was that this is just wildly inaccurate. That was not the treatment plan given. Mom clearly doesn't understand the clinical recommendations or the insurance coverage. So, all of that, where he's just like, I don't know where we went wrong with this mom, short of her just not understanding what was done. And so treatment coordinators also going, I spent a lot of time with her going over everything. So the fact that she grossly misunderstood this, treatment coordinator feels like she's failed now and is kind of going, you're making me seem like I lied to you, and I did not lie to you, just because you didn't understand it. Anyway, so my response then, I was like, well, I would just respond, which is my go-to response when we get these super ridiculous ones that we have to be careful with HIPAA and all of that. We stand 100% behind our recommendations. We're happy you found an office that meets your needs. That's it. And so associates thought, he was like, well, I like the second sentence. I definitely agree with the first sentence, but wondering if that's the right thing to say here as a response. And I said, you're right. The first sentence of my response makes it seem like we did everything that she said. If she's saying that we did bad sealants and we've recommended $7,500 worth of work, and for us to say we stand 100% behind our recommendations, maybe make it seem like we did do all of that. So let's see. So my response was, I agree. The first sentence makes it seem like we did what she was saying we did, but I'm struggling to find verbiage that's HIPAA compliant and not passive aggressive.
Right.
And then associate's next comment was like, what if we put, we always stand behind our dental recommendations and our stellar hygienists. Unfortunately, due to HIPAA, we cannot respond to anything specific, but we always encourage parents to ask questions about insurance coverage, as it oftentimes is complicated. Ultimately, we are happy that you found an office that meets your needs. And then he said, well, that's the best I could come up with, but now I'm reading it back and I'm not liking it. Mm. And then I said, I don't like it because it makes it sound like it's only an insurance issue. but she's accusing us of making up decay and doing poor work. So it doesn't really address all parts of her accusations. And then we both were like, let's just see what Bethany wants to say. But then he offers out again. We stand by our recommendations. At our office, we always try to build trust by showing intraoral pictures and or x-rays of any decay that is found. And then he's like, actually, we might be getting into the weeds, so never mind with that. So I think my husband then, his reply was maybe something along the lines of, while we cannot comment on cases due to privacy laws, we can say that we stand 100% behind our recommendations. Insurance is also much more complicated than a simple calculation, and we always do our best to review with patients what is and isn't covered. We're happy you found an office that meets your needs. And my husband's comment was, I think many people don't realize that you can't openly dispute claims because of privacy. So at least this is a way of defending yourself.
Which I loved that.
Which I'm like, really? People don't know that we can't say anything because of HIPAA? Really?
Yeah.
I've always assumed that's why they do reply, because they know we're stuck.
Yeah.
And can't say anything.
Yeah.
So in the end, we ended up posting, and you approved of this. While we cannot share our side due to privacy laws, we can say that we stand 100% behind our recommendation and our services, meaning the hygiene part of it. As evidenced by our more than 800 legitimate positive reviews, our patients love that we are thorough and appreciate that we spend much time with our families going over our findings. For any patient in any medical office, patients should always ask clarifying questions to ensure that they have understood the recommendations that are being discussed, as well as clarifying questions on the costs. Many people get home and realize they have more questions that they forgot to ask while in the office. Our patients love that we are accessible via phone, text, or email to answer follow-up questions. We are happy you found an office that meets your need.
Yep.
And the reason I went that route was because what we've always talked about was, you know what, like, come out smelling like a rose. Where can you toot your own horn? So here we stand behind our recommendations, and ultimately it's, you're a fool because you didn't understand the recommendations, you didn't understand the insurance. And by the way, the same treatment coordinator, the next day when we were talking about it, when I was back in the office, she was like, you know what's really funny is they were ready to do same day treatment. So she understood it then. They were ready to do the fillings in our office. And they had another baby with them that was being super fussy. And the mom was like trying to get through these two kids and deal with the fussy baby. Didn't want to stay in the office for another 30, 45 minutes to get the treatment done. So she went home. But she'd already signed consent. She already knew her portion.
Yeah.
Got home. And I was like, I can bet you anything. If I was a betting woman, she gets home, shows her husband the treatment plan. At this point, she's got it all confused because we talked about two different kids and two different whatever. Couldn't explain it. And the husband's probably going, what the hell? Blah, 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 blah. Because she probably told him, you know, they were going to have to pay $1,500, which is not true.
Right.
But that was her understanding. She couldn't defend it. She probably felt guilty that, you know, and he probably railed on her when she got home.
Yeah.
And then said, no, you need to go for another opinion. And that's what she did. Yeah. So anyway, in the end, whatever she got at the other dental office is exactly what she would have gotten in our office with the exact same coverage, but she got all of that confused. And anyway, so the foolery abound. But in my case, my thought was, okay, all the pieces from, you know, if we'd just done my response of we stand 100% behind, what I liked about Associates' comment too was, we need to defend our hygienists, too, because we know we do good cleanings in the office, and you didn't get, like, there was no ragtag person off the street coming in and calling it a cleaning, like, whatever. So we need to defend that. And then my passive-aggressive went through a lot of mental things going, how do I say you're an idiot? Like, you didn't understand anything. And I think even in one of my responses, I did have, you know, next time you should call, you should ask questions. I was like, you know what, I'm not going to put the you. I changed it to any person in any medical office
should ask.
Yeah, because I was like, watch me inflame this lady even more. And she's like, I'm not an idiot. I understood. You are an idiot. And, you know, that's evidenced by what you just said. $7,500 makes no sense. Like, any person with a, you know, right mind would be like, that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, any person should ask questions.
Right.
And then, how do we smell like a rose? We have 800 reviews, positive ones. You think we paid for all of those?
Right.
Maybe we did because we charge you every family $7,500. we've conned the insurance companies into paying us $7,500 and we only did $160 worth of work. Yeah, we're that good because we're crooks. So we figured out that scheme.
Being a crook is very successful. It's just great.
Yeah, so maybe that's how we've paid for all these 800 positive reviews that we have. And yeah, basically then it's like we are here to answer your questions if you recognize that you're an idiot. But now your husband made you feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
And here we are. So that was my mindset with the review. And between you, associate, husband, treatment coordinator, we all agreed that we were fine with this response.
Yes. And I like it too, because again, it goes back to that idea of we're responding to the parent, but we're also responding to all the other people that are going to read this. And so it clearly says we stand behind our recommendation and services. It also says, hey, look at our reviews, because we aren't crooks. 800 people that have written positive reviews think they appreciate our thoroughness, the amount of time we spend showing why we're recommending. Like, we didn't just, throw 8 fillings on the treatment plan and be like, oh, we're never going to show you where those are. No, those are backed by x-rays and intraoral pictures that show that. And we have 800 other patients that have written about how they appreciate that. So it's kind of a gentle jab to go, you and I both know that we showed you why your kids needed this. And so I like that it pointed out the thoroughness and the evidence of what you guys are saying.
Although I think in the final response, I didn't include the x-ray and intraoral part of it. Like, he had recommended doing that, but I just said, like, we spend a lot of time going over this with you, and most of our families appreciate the time we spend.
Yes. And then putting it back on the parent to go, if you're ever confused, which again, you didn't say it with a you, but you said in general, everybody should ask questions until they understand. And our patients love how accessible we are. In other words, if you left and had confusion or questions about the plan or couldn't understand where the math was, why didn't you call us?
Yeah.
Now, you didn't say that. You didn't say, well, you never called us with questions, because that would be breaking HIPAA. What you said was, we're here, we're accessible, and our patients love that afterwards, if they're confused, they can call and follow up with questions.
And I think just my own personal on that, in the meantime, while I'm dealing with all of this, I'm having to call back, like, for my parents' doctor's appointments and things like that, and trying to get a hold of something as simple as they recommended labs for my parents, like blood work, and I forgot to ask fasting or not fasting.
Yeah.
And it took me, Bethany, 4 days to get a response to that. So I cannot set up these lab work appointments because I don't know what time I need to take them. Because if I need it fast, I've got to adjust my schedule so I can take them early morning. And you can't call. You try to call, nobody calls you back. You leave a message on the portal. They say they take 48 hours. When in this case, they take 48 to 72 hours. And I'm just like, I'm stuck. I can't move on because I can't contact you. And that's one thing in dental I think we do exceedingly well. We put the medical community to shame with how accessible we are to our patients.
Yep.
And so personally, in the moment since I was dealing with all that, I was like, you know what, you clown. Like, not only did you get all this wrong, but we're so easy to get it's not like you're calling the medical community where you can't get an answer and you're stuck with whatever you remember. Yeah. And so you have to go to another office. Like, we are easily accessible. Dental has done, like, medical needs to learn from us on how we do that.
Yeah.
And yet you didn't. You didn't. You chose to go do your own random thing. And don't make that about me and my fault. And then I start going, did another hygienist say their teeth weren't clean? Or did another hygienist say these teeth are dirty, i.e. pointing out, Mom, that you are still not brushing your kids' teeth.
Right.
Which is why they have all these problems, $7,500 worth of problems.
Yeah.
So I was like, that could be interpreted either way. Like, somebody
Right.
could be like, either, yeah, your kids' teeth still look like crap, even though we just cleaned them 5 days ago.
Yeah.
And 50% are going to go, you did a shady job.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go back to the 800 reviews that talk about what a great job we do.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think it was the right response, without a doubt. And again, I think showing that, number one, we responded, we paused, we did not do a knee-jerk reaction, lots of dialogue that went on, sometimes even for days, this dialogue goes on until a response is put out there. So all you have to take into account HIPAA, you have to take it into account removing out any kind of snarky comment, but it still has to address the issue, and it's got to be something that makes you come out smelling like the rose that you are, not the rose that you aren't. but just showcasing this is who we are, and this parent obviously missed it. So
Right. And that's, again, like you said, for the audience that's looking at this going, oh man, they are accessible. Oh man, they do. Like, you know what, lady, you're trying to hurt us and you're talking about how we paid for our reviews. Well, since you happen to mention the reviews, like normally I wouldn't include that in our response, but since you opened the door, and I think I even put like, because I don't know, I don't ever look at it. So I put more than 300 positive reviews. My treatment coordinator was like, no, ma'am, you need to change that number. You have more than 800. She's like, we have more than 800 positive reviews. She's like, that's what you need to change in that response. Okay, I'll believe you. I didn't look. But I mean, even 300 would be
astounding.
Like, yeah, for it to say, you know what, you open that door. And so I think that was the other, like, take every opportunity to you know, puff yourself up.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, we are accessible. We do things right. And you want to, you know, throw your feces at us. Well, I'm going to throw it back in the nicest way I can. You know, like, come on now. You look like a fool. And we're going to come out smelling like a rose here.
Yeah.
So, same the treatment coordinator, when she was like, you know, do you still want me to pursue in removing this? And I was like, no.
No, let it live.
Let it live. Because it does legitimize the 800. Because if there's never any negatives on there, then yeah, I would see how people would be like,
Yeah.
you know, they are paying for their reviews. But in this case, no, I want it out there. Because I want her to know you're not going to bully me. Because then I was like, what's, I don't know how this works, but what's to say Google takes it off? And she's like, oh, it's not on there. Y'all paid Google to take it off. I'm going to post another one. You know, like, it to me, it's like, no, I'm going to face you head on, bully.
Yeah.
You're being a bully, and I'm going to defend myself.
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave it right up there.
And I'm going to set the record straight as much as I can.
Yeah.
I'm going to set the record straight. And I do think that's very valuable. And oftentimes we don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. But to me, like you said, it legitimizes all the other positives that have come through. People can usually spot a kind of crazy negative where they're like, oh yeah, that person's, you know, but when it comes down to defending the quality of your work and the recommendations, you got to take a stand.
Which the one I missed, now that we're talking about it, I should have capitalized on her because she put a wow experience. And I'm like, you are absolutely correct. Our patients love the wow. I'm glad you did too.
Yeah.
Like I should have turned that in there. But that to me, like treatment coordinator was like, yeah, you're right. Like, let's not refute this. Let's leave this on because it helps legitimize and it helps other patients that we made ourselves look like roses by saying we like, if nothing else, I think anybody trying to get an appointment anywhere nowadays, it's so difficult.
Yeah.
And for dental, that's a win because we do such a great job as a dental community with that.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.